Good morning, and thank you for joining us for SBB Live this morning. I am honored to be joined today with Cynthia Perthews with Senior Care Authority. And Cynthia, I understand that you have a very impactful story to share with us today. I really just want you to educate some folks on what you've been through and give us your story.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me. I work with the elderly, and one of my big concerns was making sure that I was safe and protecting my clients. But to back up to the story, I had COVID-19 in early March, and I had been with a group of people to Italy, and we all came back very, very ill. And about half the people were able to find a test, and the other half weren't able to find a test. And the ones who found a test were in California, in San Francisco. So at the end of the day, again, they all tested positive, which means that I was presumptive positive because I had the symptoms, and I had been to Italy, and I'd been around people who tested positive. And it was a very difficult disease, a difficult virus. I was very, very sick. I'm not a sick person. I pride myself in watching my inflammation levels, and I go to an acupuncturist, and I take supplements. I do all those things that are supposed to make us healthy and have strong immunity systems. And I was very shocked with the contagious nature of this virus. All of us were very careful about washing our hands, Purelling our hands. We had plenty of Lysol wipes. We did everything we were supposed to do. We didn't go into large crowds of people. Even though we were skiing, we really tried to stay to ourselves. We didn't go out at night. We stayed in our hotels. We just did everything we were supposed to do. And in this season, I equated to watching Charlton Heston on the Ten Commandments, that the plague just came rolling in. You could watch it take people out of our group. So part of the reason I want to tell this story is because there's a couple of things. One, we don't see a lot of stories, of good stories on the news. We see the stories of people who are dying. And while that is horrific and terrible, and my heart goes out to those families, what I like for us to also think about is how many people have survived. I didn't end up in the hospital. I ended up in the bed for 10 days. I slept 18 hours a day. And I had neighbors who brought food and left it on my front porch and then ran back to their homes and texted me that the food was there. So there's two reasons. One, I want to make sure that people understand that it's a survivable virus, and that, yes, we want to be afraid of it, but we don't need to be deathly afraid of it, and the anxiety that can crush us by being afraid if we sneeze or cough that we're going to die, because there are a lot of people like myself who are surviving. The second reason I wanted to talk about it is because I'm hearing stories of people who are being stigmatized because they have the virus or had the virus. And people will say, oh, I don't want to be around you. You had it. Don't tell anybody you had it. My neighbors didn't want anyone to know that I had it when I was sick. One of my neighbors, I told her because she's a nurse, and I wanted to know that somebody knew that I was sick, because I am single and live alone. But she was very careful about not telling people. And I hear stories now about people who are getting letters in their condo units that say, stay home, we don't want to touch you, we don't want to know about you. Millions of people are going to have this virus. Millions, and millions that we don't see in the numbers, because there are no tests, or there are few tests, and just because you have it, when you go get a test and you test positive, they don't give you a magic pill. And those were the two reasons I really wanted to tell my story. I also wanted to tell you that just kind of go through a couple of the symptoms and how I figured out that I had it. So all of the symptoms that I had, I rationalized them away as they started. So I started with a low-grade temperature, and again, I was in Italy, and I was at a ski resort, and so I rationalized it away that I had these chills because it was cold outside. I'd been cold. Then I had the body aches. Well, I'd been hauling ski equipment and been on buses and trains and all of those things. So it made sense that I would have body aches. My body was sore. I had a sore throat. Well, that made sense too. I had a headache. Well, I was in a high altitude. I was tired and not hungry. Well, I had jet lag. So all of these things I rationalized. This was also early in the session of this, in the cycle of it, where while I was in Italy, I got there before it exploded in Italy. And so I kept thinking, oh, this can't be what it is. In the end, that is what it is. So those were the symptoms. I mentioned earlier, I slept 18 hours a day for about 3 days. I lost 8 pounds, which, I'm sure I have found those pounds back. But I did lose a lot of weight because I just wasn't hungry. I couldn't speak on the phone because the cough and the things that were in my chest didn't allow me to have long conversations without getting winded. I will tell you, I am a very optimistic person. I was incredibly depressed while I had this. And part of it had to do with I was alone. Part of it had to do with I felt just worse than I had ever felt in my memory. And the market was crashing. And I have a business where I help place people in assisted living, and I was concerned about my business and my employees. So I went through this depressed time period that all of those things just kind of weighed down on me. And in the end, I also developed panic attacks. So I thought I wasn't being able to breathe. And when I thought through it, what really was the issue is that I was panicked about where the world was going, my own health, my family, my friends, my employees, my clients, and I had to do some things to get through that. One of the things that we hear that people suggest that I highly, highly recommend is I was able to slowly but surely start exercising again. I practice a lot of yoga. I meditate. I hadn't been meditating during this time. I started to meditate again. And I reached out and got in touch with people I hadn't talked to in years and did a lot of FaceTime with them. I called my clients. I called a lot of my work people. I drank extraordinary amounts of hot tea and lots of liquids and spent a lot of time sleeping. And then I also did what a lot of people are doing now, and I watched really bad TV. So yes, I am in the group of people who has watched the full series of Tiger King. So just so that you're aware.
Me too. So I think it's really important too to mention when you and I spoke about this, everyone that was on your trip, first of all, talk to us about how many people were on your trip, being that they all came back with positive results or presumed positive from their symptoms. But also just how different each and every one of their symptoms were, because that, is something to consider for sure.
Correct. So there were 14 people on the trip with me, and I was the youngest person on that trip at 60, but none of us thought we would ever get it. There was a number of healthcare providers that were on the trip with me. So again, we were all washing our hands. Of the symptoms, I would say of the 14 of us, no one's set of symptoms looked exactly the same. So there's fever. Most of us had fever. Some had low fever. Some had 103 fever. Some of us had body aches. Some didn't have body aches. Some had stomach and gastrointestinal issues. Some didn't. Some had gastrointestinal issues for days. Some had it for a day. Some people had a dry cough. Some had a wet cough. Some had it in head congestion. Others did not have head congestion. There were people who slept all the time and who were not hungry. There were people who were ravenous. So there were some of us that had this for about 10 days, and there were some people who had it for, 24 days, 25 days.
Wow.
So it doesn't look exactly the same. Some people I had a headache one evening, just a minor headache. Some people had migraine headaches for days. It doesn't present itself in the same way from my experience. Again, I'm not a doctor, but from my experience, it doesn't present itself in the same way with every person.
Right, and I know you mentioned to me too that really, you are a survivor. You made it through. It was awful. You suffered a few cracked ribs from coughing. So I applaud you for how great you look today, and what you're doing to speak out to the community. Because I think you're right. There is a stigma for people that are experiencing this, and they need to understand that there's going to be a whole lot more. So talk to us about how important that social distancing is in your opinion. And also now that you are healed, what are you looking for from the community? Because I understand that you really want to get out there and help people because you've been through this and you know exactly what it's like to be alone at this time. So just give me a synopsis on a couple of those things.
Okay. So, one of the things is that when I was cleared, so let me back up. I was monitored by a health department in California because there were no tests for me to take at the time when I had come back into, to the East Coast. But the people on the West Coast, I was with mainly people from the West Coast, so they went and they fought for tests. And then, of course, some of them, being in the medical profession, they were able to find some tests. So at that time, they then gave up the names of the people they had been with. So I became monitored by San Francisco. And when they cleared me, they said, you're not contagious any longer. Again, I don't know that we know that. But we can't tell you if you're immune. And even now, I can't give plasma to try to help on the antibody side because I didn't have a positive test. And so while I was presumed positive, which is the phrase they use, it doesn't help on the plasma testing. So I can't help in that way. However, I chose to self-quarantine, self-isolate as if I had never had it and as if I was a carrier. I think it is so important to self-isolate and to quarantine yourself and to shelter in place, if you will. Whatever phrase that is being used, it's important to stay home. And part of that is because I saw how it ripped through my group. And again, all healthy, no underlying conditions, athletic, very cognizant of our health, and all of us got it. And it just was rampant. So I think it is highly important to self-quarantine, stay in place, do things at home. I know that it can be difficult. I've done some work on isolation, and I've always believed that isolation is detrimental to the senior community because it can cause dementia, higher risk of dementia. It can cause higher blood pressure. It can cause a number of things just being isolated at home. And to be honest with you, I feel like I'm one of my clients. There are days that I don't know what day it is. I have to look at my computer to see what day it is because I'm more concerned about what I'm having for breakfast, what I'm having for lunch. Can I squeeze a yoga session online in? And so when I reached out to you originally a few weeks ago because I wanted to find a way to volunteer and to help. I'm a volunteer at heart, and I just couldn't figure out what I could do. I can't go serve meals. I can't go into a community because no one knows if I'm really contagious or immune. I can't help people in assisted livings. I can't go into people's homes. So what I came up with and what the group that I work with, Senior Care Authority, came up with is we're offering a 1-hour consultation to our clients, our potential clients. So if you have a family member that's at home, we do assisted living placement and consultation, and we charge for a consultation. But we're saying if you're at home and you need some help finding healthcare or finding some options or finding some ideas about a way to help someone who's isolated, myself included, I'm willing to work with you by phone and give you a free hour of my time and my knowledge to help you find a way to bridge this gap and get through this. I believe that there will be a lot of pent-up demand when this is over with people who've been unable to get to their parents and unable to get to loved ones in their homes. And I'm here to help with that. But in the meantime, I'm here to help give some people some ideas.
Perfect. And you do a lot more than just placement, you're also a geriatric care manager by trade as well. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not an official geriatric care manager, but I do some care management work. And what I'm termed as an elder care strategist. I work with geriatric care managers. So my job is to build the team. I tell people that I know about this industry an inch deep and a mile wide. And so if you need someone who is a yoga specialist for Parkinson's disease, I can't go teach you yoga for Parkinson's, but I can find the best yoga Parkinson's person.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I do. We do, like I said, we do some care management, but if it gets into the medical field, we go find our partners who are true geriatric care managers.
Right. So you're the link.
I'm the link. I'm the project manager that really brings everybody together and tries to find the people who can work on the team together that work well together and that can work with you together. So, from an assisted living placement standpoint, there's close to 100 assisted living communities in Southwest Florida. And my job is to know things about the family's culture, the family's background, the family's beliefs, as well as their health and their financial issues, so I can find the right place. It's the same way when I do the elder care strategy work. We learn. I have a team of people that work with me. I work in New York City and in Southwest Florida, and I'm in Southwest Florida now, which is the best place to be today. We work to really understand and cover up that family and know if the best thing to do is to find assisted living or the best thing to do is to try to reproduce it in your home. And we know who might be best to work with you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I know you're coming on today because you really want to spin this in a positive fashion to let people know that there is hope and that we are going to get through this, but also to really take this social distancing seriously because of how quickly this can spread. Is there anything else that you want to share with us before we conclude today's episode?
No, I want to encourage people to, again, in some of the studies that I have done, one of the things that I found a report just last week talks about the fact that flowers can really help people's immunity system. And, I always say, I know how happy and how light and positive that I am when I have flowers. And so I want to encourage people that if they are out, stop and buy some flowers or call the florist and have the florist deliver you some flowers. But there's also just a number of other things, and I want to encourage people to just find those things. Don't get too wrapped up in the social media aspect. I have adult children who basically really don't want to FaceTime with me every day, but there's some other things that we can do. And I also want to encourage you, if you have questions just about anything, either in what I've talked about today or in the business that we do, you can reach me at Cynthia@SeniorCareAuthority.com. And so send me an email and I'll reach out to you because, like I said earlier, I'm sitting around trying to decide what I'm going to have for lunch or what I'm going to have for dinner or what is the worst TV that I can watch for.
I think you're getting a little stir crazy, right?
I think you're probably all getting a little stir crazy. It could be worse though. I have a colleague that I spoke to today and I asked how he was doing and he said, just picture yourself at home with your 12-year-old daughter and your wife and your son where you can't leave. How do you think I'm doing? Yeah. And I said, well, there are some, I like to find the silver lining and make lemonade out of lemons, and I'm at home alone. So it could be worse.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're always here for you if you want to talk, Cynthia, and I appreciate you coming on today and sharing your story. And I can't wait to sit down with you in person again soon.
And to give you a hug.
Yes, I'm a hugger,
I'm a hugger.
Thank you for joining us for SBB Live today and giving up some of your time. I appreciate it very much.
Okay. Thanks for having me. Thanks so much. Good luck.
Take care.